Hello, welcome to Elizabeth Reads. We are reading Tamsin Winters' Jemima Small versus the Universe, and we are on chapter 42, Team GGB. It was pitch black. I was lying in my sleeping bag with my head poking out of the tent and the door zipped up just above my face. My legs were aching from hiking about 8,000 miles up a hill to the ruins of an Iron Age fort, and I felt kind of sick after eating a bag of Gina's delicious homemade marshmallows. But the sky looked 1,000 times more incredible than I'd imagined. It was such a good idea to bring Jasper's binoculars. I could see everything. Star clusters, meteors, nebula clouds, the Andromeda galaxy spiraling its way towards ours. It was kind of mind-blowing. All that energy, burning, exploding, colliding, and fusing. Down here, it was almost completely still and silent. Apart from Heidi's snoring, that is. "Jemima," Jazz whispered, "close the zip, it's freezing." I took one last look at the sky and then wiggled back into the tent. "Sorry," I whispered. "I can't sleep," Jazz said. "I keep hearing wolves." "They're owls, Jazz. There aren't any wolves." "Harry said that wolves could live in the forest and no one would even know," she whispered. "That's stupid. We don't have wolves in England." Jazz shone her phone light on her face. "He said they could have escaped from a zoo." "He was just trying to scare you." "Anyway, most species of wolves don't pose any risk to humans. The deadliest thing at Camp Go Wild is probably that lake water we were swimming in earlier," I whispered back. "You can catch all kinds of things, and the catering equipment did not look exactly hygienic to me." I told Jazz about the different forms of bacteria that live in water and the general breaches of health and safety and human rights I'd seen so far at Camp Go Wild. "Jazz," I whispered, "are you still awake, Jazz?" And that's how I discovered talking about bacteria and health and safety might be slightly soporific. I wiggled as far back into my sleeping bag as I could, hoping that the payback Lottie was planning wouldn't be any worse than the mud challenge Camp Go Wild had in store for us tomorrow. The next morning, huge blobs of rain slid down my face as I tried to run through the forest. It was the mud challenge, or more accurately, the 5-kilometer mud challenge uphill through a monsoon. And contrary to Gina's prediction at the start line, I was not smashing it. I was finally grateful for Dad's gaiters, though. They were keeping my legs dry. It was just a shame about the rest of me. I could feel sweat collecting against the fabric of my cagoule. I'd slipped over approximately 1,000,000,000,000 times. One thing was for sure, Camp Go Wild was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Miki was way ahead with his group, and Lottie had gone past ages ago, telling me not to have a heart attack. "Keep going!" Frankie, our team leader, shouted as she ran past in shorts and a vest. I looked up and slipped over on a muddy tree root. Frankie smiled. "It's all part of the fun." She helped me up and told me, "Rest, but don't quit." I really did not like her. I found a tree stump that was half sheltered from the rain and unzipped my cagoule. "I'll catch you up," I said to Heidi. "Okay, I'll go slow." I watched her half jog, half skid across the forest floor. I stretched my aching legs out in front of me and wiped the sweat from my forehead. A 5-kilometer mud challenge in a deluge. It was basically physical torture. "Jemima, there you are!" Gina's smile appeared through the rain. "Heidi said you needed a rest. Are you okay?" "I'm not running," I said. "It's too dangerous." "That's okay," she said. "We can walk. But you have to finish Team GGB code, remember?" I sighed. "How far is it?" "Not far," she said. "The camp's about 500 meters up that hill." She crouched next to me and pointed through the trees. "See the flag?" I could just make out a tiny spot of blue in the distance. "You can do it, Jemima," she said, but I didn't move. "I'll tell you what, why don't I quiz you on the way? See how many questions you can get right before the end." I looked at her. "Oh, come on, don't tell me you haven't got some revision cards hidden in that cagoule." I took a deep breath and pulled the revision cards out of my pocket. "Okay, but only because these are my laminated ones." "Awesome," Gina said, helping me up. Her hands were really soft. She must have used loads of moisturizer. It probably came free in her luxury accommodation. "Hey, look at us," she pointed to our legs. She had virtually the exact same trousers on. Team Gators. They're my dad's. "Well, your dad is seriously cool." That's what he says. I walked back to camp with Gina asking me questions all the way until finally the meeting point came into sight. A crowd of people stood by the finish line. This is so embarrassing, I said, trying not to lose my breath, coming last. Oh, we're not last, Gina said. Miss Fraser's group went the wrong way, apparently. They're miles behind. Anyway, who cares? She dipped her fingers into a mound of mud and drew stripes across her cheeks. Go, Team GGB! And it was annoying because I couldn't stop laughing, and it made it even harder to breathe. About 30 meters away from the flagpole, I picked up my speed and tried to forget about what people might think. I focused on what my body was feeling instead, which was mostly excruciating pain. Miki jumped up from the grass and shouted, Go, Jemima! As I crossed the finish line. My trainers were covered in mud, my skin was covered in sweat, my hair was soaking wet and sticking to my face, and my cheeks felt like they'd been set on fire. But I didn't feel like that on the inside. On the inside, I felt like one of Luna's tarot cards. The one with the woman riding on the back of a lion with her hair flowing out behind her, holding a heart of flames. The one that says strength at the bottom. I felt exactly like that. And a bit worried about what Dad was going to say about my ruined trainers. The showers at Camp Go Wild were freezing, which had to be illegal. I was going to Google it when I got a phone signal. I waited until the changing rooms were almost empty and then got dressed in the corner of the changing rooms with goosebumps on my skin and aching legs. I pulled a plastic bag out of the back pocket of my rucksack and shoved my muddy trainers in it. Hey, you dropped something, Heidi said, pointing to something on the floor. Fell out of your bag. Thanks. I picked it up. It was a brochure saying, Bright Star Cruises, the luxury cruise ship that treats you like a star. We'd never been on a cruise. Definitely not a luxury one. Dad's idea of a luxury holiday was staying in Nana's old caravan in North Wales. There was no way Dad would pay for a cruise. He moaned about how much it cost to play crazy golf at Dolphin Bay. I wondered where it came from, but my hair was still wet and my hands were freezing, so I put it in my coat pocket and then sat under the hand dryer until I felt less like I might get hypothermia. Miki was leaning against a tree outside the changing block. His hair was still slightly wet and flapping around in the wind. Here. He handed me one of his mom's homemade cookies, and I looked around for the coach. We've got to walk, remember? Miki said, munching on a biscuit. 2 miles. Oh, no, I said. I can't believe we had to pay for this experience. Just then, Lottie ran past, looking at me and laughing, and I got this cold kind of dread. Probably how it feels to really get hypothermia, like she'd done something, and it was too late for me to do anything about it. I guess that's what happens when you stay up half the night stargazing and talking about wolves and bacteria. You forget to keep an eye out for the real predators.